Chapter 111. Dress Rosa, Royal Palace, the Don Quixote family. Doflamingo was sitting on a chair with one leg above another. A grin was forming on his face while he had the newspaper in his hand. Coo, coo, coo. Celestial dragons bootlicking clip viral. Two celestial dragons were seen running as dogs in Skypiean. Doffy read out loud. By now, the news of the celestial dragon incident in the sky was known throughout the world. No one was left in the dark about it. Doflamingo was busy with underworld work, so he was reading yesterday's newspaper. The famous Miss All Sunday is none other than devil child Nico Robin. Oh? This is a piece of interesting news. Kaido will be interested in her. Doffy then proceeded to read the next news. Lucifer lost his warlord position. Who will be the new candidate? Meanwhile, Kizaru's defeat was suppressed by the government. So people were still seeing Amon as a weakling. Reading all the headlines, Doffy scratched his cheek. Lucifer lost his position. It was predictable from the beginning that he will do something like that. Cuckoo. Sad bastard. Suddenly, Doflamingo looked at the sky. A bird was flying. It was a news albatross. It was carrying today's newspaper. Doflamingo knew today Lucifer's new bounty will be revealed. It is so late since something happened in the Mariage that he doesn't know. Lucifer's new bounty. He was interested. He felt some kind of friendly connection with Amon since he humiliated the world nobles, the people Doffy hates. If he has a good bounty, then he might propose an alliance to him. Your enemy's enemy is your friend. Thinking this, Doffy caught the newspaper that the duck threw using his strings. Coincidentally, his eyes fell on the last page of the newspaper. His eyes grew up, and he jumped up from his seat. Death of Admiral Kizaru Borsellino. How did Lucifer manage to defeat the fastest man alive? Doflamingo couldn't believe his eyes. He felt cold sweat dripping down his back. Doffy was strong, but he couldn't imagine defeating an admiral, at least not Kizaru. Doffy read the contents of the said news. A question popped up in his head. Why was this news printed today? It should have been printed 2 days ago. He was confused. The answer was simple. The government tried to suppress the news, but Morgan was too intrigued by the things he saw on his trip. He would never let this news die under a rock. His journalist spirit won't let it happen. So he went against the government, just like he always does. With sweat forming on his forehead, Doffy turned the newspaper around and focused on the headline. What? Another shout escaped his lips. This attracted the other Donkixoot pirates of the palace. The headline was like this: Birth of the 5th Emperor of the Sea, Lucifer's real name, Amon. The rise of the 5th Emperor, Amon, with the bounty of 2.4 billion bellies, dead. Doffy was only standing in the spot with sweat falling down his face. In Marijois, in a massive hall with a high staircase, the famous empty throne stood. There were exactly 20 swords in front of the throne. They were rusty and old. However, the so-called empty throne wasn't empty today. Imu-sama, what should we do with this man? A being clad in white was sitting on the empty throne. At the footing under the staircase, the 5 elders were bowing, their head touching the ground. They were bowing to the being wearing a golden crown. Silently sitting on the empty throne, the figure was looking at the poster on its hand. Minutes passed. A courageous elder decided to open his mouth. Imu-sama. Imu, the being whose gender was unknown, just stayed silent at their call. It was almost as if Imu left this time and entered another dimension. Another few minutes passed while the being stared down with its blood-red eyes. While its gaze was falling on the elders, they shivered. After a few minutes, a genderless voice sounded. It is not time yet. The voice was both masculine and feminine. The elders felt their heart calm down, hearing the soothing voice. It was not the time yet. Only the being knew what that meant. The elders nodded with their bit of understanding. We understand, Imusama. Skypiean, City of Gold, Shandora. Upper Yard was declared as Shandora yesterday by Amon. The City of Gold has regained its previous status in the world. It was only waiting to progress more. My Kami! Yona rushed towards Amon with her eyes shining. Her previously downed self was nowhere to be seen. My Kami! Yona stood in front of Amon. Her eyes were shining as she presented the bounty poster to Amon. Look, you got a bounty! Instantly, the people around started to chatter. Amon has made them well known with worldly affairs, so they knew what a bounty meant. Although there were people with a very high number of bounty, they knew they aren't greater than their god. Amon accepted the poster. His eyes shined instantly as he counted the number of 0 on the poster. He then looked at his picture. In the poster, Amon was smiling. His face was clad in blood, but his white teeth were a perfect match with his olive skin. His red eyes were looking directly at the other party's eyes. Amon grinned seeing this. Yona looked at the crowd. Everyone, our Kami got a bounty too. She took a deep breath. A bounty of 2. 4 billion belly, only dead. Although it's quite small compared to other big names, don't forget this is our Kami's first bounty. This is a big step towards divinity of our Lord. Yona seemed happier than anyone else. This made Amon smile. Her loyalty was enough to give that to her. Amon's mind was busy thinking. 2.4 billion is very high for a first bounty, but pretty meh if I consider everything I did. The celestial dragons probably wanted to force a high bounty on me, but was rejected at the end. Still, it was good that he got this higher bounty after all. If he was going to get a bounty anyway, it was better to get a high one than low. Meanwhile, after this news, most of the guild members left the guild. Though many of them stayed too, they were already doing dirty works under the guilds after all. This will only benefit them more. Not to mention, my alliance with many countries makes me dangerous. I don't think any of the kingdom will try to take back their alliance if I gain the 5th emperor with my name too. Guys, don't be happy yet, that's not the end. Ha! Amon was interrupted by Yona, who took a deep breath, preparing to read the headline of the newspaper out loud. Rise of the 5th Emperor. Yes, our Kami is the 5th powerhouse of the world. The Kudera Yona had a rarely seen happy smile on her face. Her cheeks were red out of excitement. Even her purple eyes were shining. Amon smirked hearing this. My bounty surpassed 1.5 billion marks of Canon Luffy after all. Not that I didn't demand the title myself. Among the many things he asked the elders of, this was a thing. Though he would have gotten it anyway without asking. Just that unlike Luffy, Amon was officially announced an emperor by the government. Besides, he would have gotten the title anyway. The Goro Goro no Mi itself is enough to grant him a 500 million bounty. But according to Hina's report, because of the explosion Amon made in the sky, the government assumed Amon awakened his fruit too. Taking all this into account, everything made sense. Not only that, Yona screamed again. Unlike other emperors, our Kami has a special title. A short silence. Yay! Everyone screamed. They seemed happy hearing that. By now, most of the people have gathered in the training hall. Even Robin was amongst the crowd. She seemed to wipe her teary eyes. She was truly happy. She had one thought. I will always be by your side. Amon glanced at Robin. He wanted to laugh a little, but he controlled himself. He then decided to make an announcement. Everyone, Amon called out, to celebrate this event, I will train you personally for a week. Everyone became ecstatic hearing this. Yay, wait! They stopped midway from shouting happily. They had a thought, isn't this a bad thing for our bones? No! In the corner of the room, Wiper had a poster in his hand, a small smile on his face. The bounty was not as high as Amon, but it made him happy at least. 5th Emperor? Mamma mia, a kid who is still wet behind the ears? Mamma mia! Big Mom laughed out loudly. This was an interesting development, though it would be interesting to see how long he can keep that title. Mama! The other emperor has similar reactions, especially Whitebeard. Goo ha 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 ha! Whitebeard laughed while gulping sake. Roger, it seems our generation has already ended. Goo ha 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 ha! The Yonko would now have a new name on the list, the name Amon. This name will be written a lot starting from now on. Many kingdoms associated with the guild wanted to cut ties, but after getting this news, they were too afraid and greedy. They even tried to use their princesses as bait to use against Lucifer, who was infamous as a playboy. Alas, it was a bad move from their side. On the other side of the world, in the East Blue, the heinous fishman Arlong was in Kokoyashi village, Arlong Park. Bwahahaha! Arlong laughed loudly seeing the newspaper. Those pig-human bastards were nicely done by this guy. He had a grin on his face, his eyes deadly. He even killed that Borsellino. Borsellino was the one who injured Fisher Tiger and indirectly killed him. So Kizaru was the person who is hated most by Arlong. After this incident, Arlong started to respect Amon. He didn't respect Amon because of his 5th emperor title, but he respects him for his other feats. It was then when Arlong recalled the news he got from a spy in Fishman Royal Palace a few years ago. I heard this guy is also the protector of us fishmen, something stated in the legendary poneglyph. Arlong didn't believe that before because of Amon's similarities with a human, but after how he saved Otohime and after today's incident, his views changed. Ha 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 ha! Everyone at that place looked at Arlong. Amon, the 5th emperor, is our idol from now on. Huh? Everyone was shocked and surprised. Scaredly, a fishman beside him walked towards him. Boss, shouldn't he be our enemy too? He is a human after all. Arlong shouted, Fool! Can't you see those beautiful wings on his back? He is not human. The other fishman flinched and looked at the bounty newspaper which had a photo of Amon. It was different from the bounty poster which only captured his face. Oh, right. Scratching his neck, the other fishermen also started to laugh, albeit awkwardly. They had no idea what feat Amon achieved. They were a frog in the well. Among the people who were in Arlong Park, a human with orange hair was also there. Who is this guy? Arlong called him his idol, so he must be a bad guy. Knitting her brows, the girl, Nami, decided to look at the newspaper later. Her 15-year self hated fishmen and everyone associated with them from her core. She is keeping a list of people associated with Arlong to one day take revenge. Meanwhile, the world nobles were pressuring the government to increase Amon's bounty. 2.4 billion seemed too small compared to their anger. They didn't care about the balance that the elders were talking about. They wanted Amon to die.